Y'all riding with me through the storm. Every view, every year, every prayer, we ain't standing alone no more. From the ashes we rose with a Bible in hand. Truth in the dirt, still we taking a stand. Y'all tuned in while the world turned away, but God ain't done, he's still making the way. For the lost, for the broken, for the ones who believe. We riding together, outlaw misfits never leave. Raise your hands if you still got faith. Shout amen if you walk through flames. We're outlaw misfits, breaking chains in the light. Truth on our lips and we ready to fight. I ain't no polished preacher, I'm a scarred up man, but y'all stood beside me when the fire hit the land. Every view, every share, it's a spark in the dark, like thunder in the night, putting truth in your heart. And this is Broken Roots, where the outlaw rides. Faith and fire mix, and the spirit never hides. For the lost, for the broken, for the ones who believe. We riding together, outlaw misfits never leave. Raise your hands if you still got faith. Shout amen if you walk through flames. We're outlaw misfits, breaking chains in the light. Truth on our lips and we ready to fight. Storm clouds roll, but the fire don't fade. We're the rebels in the night that the Lord has made. Thank y'all for the love, for the fight, for the stand. Together with God, we gon' heal this land. Raise your hands if you still got faith. Shout amen if you walk through flames. We're outlaw misfits, breaking chains in the light. Truth on our lips and we ready to fight. To every soul who pressed play, you're proof God's not done with us yet. Keep riding, keep fighting. This is Broken Roots. We're outlaw misfits.
Hey, good evening, folks. This is Phil coming at you. I don't know about you. I'm still pretty finding it hard to come up with words tonight. I'm still pretty much affected by the murder of Charlie Kirk tonight. But I know that God said, "Vengeance is mine," saith the Lord. I will repay. It's not up to me, and it's not worth getting angry. What my hope, what my prayer is that maybe the incident that happened, well, it's yesterday now, but the incident that happened yesterday, maybe just maybe, Lord willing, it will open someone to the gospel. I did a stream 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time yesterday, and I pretty much went through the sinful state of man, and just really got preaching on there. And nothing was scripted. I just went off. I think a lot of it was led by the Lord. Some of it was my own personal feelings. I blew off steam, and I gave the gospel. Tonight I'm going on Discord again, and it is it's my hope that I don't know, whatever happened tonight or yesterday will affect someone that'll be willing to have an honest one-on-one conversation. And I pray that the Lord gives me grace. I pray that the Lord brings someone in. I'll be honest with you right now. I'm having issues with my heart. It's feeling it's feeling pretty tight. It's feeling like there's a fist around it, which is normal when I have a vasospasm. I talked with a nurse later on actually right before the stream, and she'll be here Monday showing me how to mix and give my first dose of the medication. So I gotta last until then. If for some reason you're hearing any problems at all with my audio, there's any screeching going on, because I do have the AC plugged into my preamp, please let me know. I think I might have had the gain too high. That could have been the problem. I don't know. I've done, pre-records, test recordings of audio before I go live, and so far it seems to be working fine. But if not, please do me the favor of letting me know in chat. So let's go ahead and go over to Discord, and I'm at the bottom here going fishing, Christian 1v1. Right now I've got the room limit set to one person for just myself, because I wanted to do the introduction, and of course I have myself on mute because what I am saying now doesn't need to go into a channel. But I pray tonight the Lord will bring someone in that I can witness to or talk to. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I prayed before the stream. The Lord's will be done. I mean, my mind's been, what do I do? Just sleep tonight? Do I watch revenge movies? Or do I give this night to the Lord? And every opportunity, I have to believe Romans 8:28. All good things to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. And maybe God will turn what happened tonight I don't know, into a blessing. So, okay, I'm going to set the limit to 2. So now a second person can join in if they want to. Oh, they actually got a Kundalini yoga. I haven't seen one of those up in a while. A lot of nasty stuff about Charlie Kirk. but as always, I'm going to stick with the gospel. So we'll see if anyone comes in. I'm also running Microsoft Teams. The link is in the chat. You can watch me on Rumble, YouTube, or on Locals. I'm streaming live to all 3 channels. And I don't know. Like I said, it's either I do this or I get angry, and I'd rather keep my mind on the Lord. Tragedies like this just makes me want to reach out people even more. So I don't. Hey, good evening or afternoon, depending where you're at. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well, man. How are you?
I'm sorry, your voice is kind of garbled there a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, a little bit better. I'm kind of turning your volume down just a little bit because I'm having a hard time. So
Oh, okay. Is it like an internet issue or is it a microphone issue? What do you think?
it sounded like a microphone issue, but I can hear you
Let me
fine
just
now.
turn on push to talk. How about now? If I hold push to talk, does that work?
That makes it worse. So if you talk just regular,
Shit.
if you talk
How about
regular
this?
without push to talk, I can hear you fine.
Okay. How's that?
Good enough. I hear a little echo, but I can understand you.
Okay. I'm not sure what's happening there. That's weird. Let me just check what microphone. Huh. Okay. Anyway.
Technology, can't live with it, can't live without it, you know?
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I've got to take something out of the oven in 12 minutes, but I can come right back if that happens.
Sure, no problem.
So, what do you want to talk about?
Well, obviously I'm a Christian, and name of the channel after going fishing, quoting Jesus, "I'll make you fisher of men," and open to really any topic based around that. I'm not looking for a yelling, screeching debate. I'm just looking for a discussion, and
Sure.
whatever you want to talk about, go ahead and open it up.
Gotcha. I'm not a big fan of yelling matches either. I'm not a Christian, so I'm sure we have a lot to talk about there. So, so many things. I guess, why do you think that Christianity is true?
Well, I could ask you the same question. Why would you think that it's not? Let me ask you this. You said you're not a Christian. Are you like an agnostic, atheist, part of another religion? Just so I can get a
Yeah,
better
I'm a run-of-the-mill agnostic atheist.
agnostic atheist. Okay. So my answer to why I believe Christianity is true is, first of all, I believe there is a universal moral law in all of our hearts that we call morality, our conscience. I believe the way the universe is structured, the way the earth is positioned exactly to support life. I believe if we go back, looking all the way to, say, for example, taking the theory of the singularity, how the universe began, because we know the universe had a beginning. It goes against the law of non-contradiction. I believe everything from Einstein's theory of relativity to even the first and second laws of thermodynamic prove the existence of God. Over the amount of archaeological evidence that grows year by year, um, and then ultimately a choice for me to either believe or not believe. And believe it or not, I was not always a Christian in my entire life. I was actually an atheist at one time myself.
Hmm.
So for me, naturalism couldn't give me all the answers to all the questions that I had out there. I just knew that there had to be more than just matter and a soup of enzymes that somehow something happened and the spur cell came together and we became what we are now. I think there's a lot more. We could use the term metaphysical, but such as the mind and
Hmm.
morality and all that kind of stuff, and the concept of good and evil,
Hmm.
regardless of how we define it, is not something that naturalism itself alone can define. That there has to be meaning to that, and so that would be my short and sweet definition of why I'm a Christian. So let me turn the question to you. Why do you believe? Well, okay, you're an atheist agnostic. So why do you
Hmm.
take that position?
Um, so I take that position because the default position that you have to take in order to be sane is that nothing exists until you have a good reason to believe that it exists. Because the alternative is to assume that everything exists until you have a reason not to exist, not for it not to exist. Um, so I take the same orientation towards the Christian God or any other God as I do with other things that we would probably agree are obviously not real. So things like fairies or Bigfoot, etc. It's not that I have like a clear, specific, concrete case against Bigfoot. It's just that I haven't seen anything sufficiently convincing to believe that Bigfoot exists.
Mm,
So I have heard a lot of the different arguments that Christians give for why Christianity is true, and as well as Muslims and Hindus and etc. And none of them have really been sufficiently convincing
mm,
to move me from that default position. And with something like Christianity in particular, there are a few things that I think are fairly outright contradictions, depending on the denomination that you belong to and your specific beliefs, um, which makes it even harder of a pill to swallow. And beyond that, I mean, they're just rather straightforward things that everyone encounters, like the problem of evil, where if you actually posited a omniscient, omnipotent, benevolent God, then the universe that we see today is very dissimilar to what I would expect under those conditions. So that's basically my thought process.
well, that's a very good thought process there, and that's actually one that I had as an atheist myself. It
Hmm.
goes in two ways. If God is omnipotent and all powerful, how can he allow all the evil and suffering going on in the world today? Is he really a good God? Um,
Hmm.
or the second half of that is God is not all powerful and all omnipotent, and he can't stop all the evil that's going on. Those are the two
Hmm.
sides of the issues there. And I get that brought up a lot, and that was something that I had to go through myself. Now, you said you've had a lot of discussion with a lot of different Christians. So I don't know exactly what answers you've been given. Um, for me, it all goes back down to free will and sin. As
Hmm.
far as denomination goes, I don't consider myself a denomination. I'm a believer in the 66 books of the Bible, and I go from there. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I also find a contradiction in naturalism. For example, the singularity. In the singularity, time doesn't exist. There is no matter. there is no energy, but then suddenly that singularity turns. We know there's a Big Bang, that the universe started. We have evidence for that with all the microwave background evidence, and we see the universe expanding and everything like that. There's a contradiction. There's an obvious contradiction in there. If time does not exist, time didn't begin until the beginning of the universe itself. Like if t equals 0 using math, that's about as far back as we can go, and we can't even describe the singularity beyond that. To me, that in itself is a contradiction, and I haven't heard a good explanation of how the universe could come into an existence, because time would have to be active for that to be possible, for the singularity to explode, or whatever you want to call it, to begin the creation of the universe. So, where you see a contradiction in my part, in my faith, I see that contradiction in naturalism.
Sure. Um, again, um, okay.
So, I'm
So
just talking. I'm not
yeah, yeah, no,
arguing.
no worries. I'm just trying to piece it together. So you seem to be representing a sort of dichotomy between naturalism and Christian theism. Isn't the position, like, isn't it a viable position to simply say you don't know exactly how it got here?
Well, okay. What I'm doing is there's two possibilities. Either
Mhm.
it's the theory of naturalism, where we know the universe. Would you agree with me that the universe had a beginning? Let me just ask that question.
I don't know. I have no idea.
You have no idea. So you haven't really, okay.
Like, I'm familiar with the Big Bang Theory. I think it all probably happened. Um,
Yeah,
but again, the question of time continuing backwards, does it have a specific origin, or is it running on some kind of cycle? Has the universe existed in some form forever? I don't know.
well, it's proven through astronomy. We go through redshifts and stuff. A lot of evolutionists, a lot of atheists or atheist agnostics, scientists hold on to it. Even Einstein, who was not a Christian, he came up with a theory of relativity, which is basically what I'm working off of here. You've heard the phrase space time. They're in
Mhm,
conjunction with each other. One cannot
mhm,
exist without the other. Energy cannot be created. That is the first law of thermodynamics. And then, of
mhm,
course, we know the second law of thermodynamics is entropy, where everything is winding down. We see that the universe is constantly expanding. So we can
mhm,
extrapolate from the constant expansion of the universe that um, at one point there was always going back to the beginning. And then we also, like I said before, there is evidence, and I'm taking this from people who aren't Christians, the mainstream science, that there is so much evidence out there as far as background radiation,
yeah, I accept the
heat and
Big Bang
stuff.
happens for sure.
So that
The
there was
question of what happened prior to that is the question. So
right,
I don't
right,
know.
right. Okay, so you'd agree with me that what I'm talking about is there was a beginning of this universe that we're in right now. Um, the steady state claim for the universe has been, and this is something that I've looked into again. Most atheist astronomers and have pretty much denied that, and believe that the universe, even when the second law of thermodynamics fully cools in and all heat is equally transferred, and we're basically in I forget the exact terminology of it, but the cold death of the universe is still going to continue on expanding. It doesn't expand and contract, expand and contract. So it's always going to be there. So the question really comes down to is what kicked it off? And so for me, there can be only, for me, unless you have a third or a fourth to add on to, I'd be more than happy to listen to that. There's
Mhm.
there's only two possibilities.
And
Something,
what are those possibilities? Yeah.
okay, something associated with without any deity or outside influence caused it to happen, or something naturalistic had to happen. But using Einstein's theory of relativity, and we get the space time going on, within the singularity itself, there was no time. So how could, I mean, even a millisecond doesn't exist. So how could that turn into, you know, begin something if time doesn't exist during that period? For me, as a
Yep.
belief as a Christian, God is a spirit. He's not a physical being. So that means that he's not bound by space and time. He's actually outside of it. He's not bound by the laws of
Yep.
physics like we are.
Hang
And
on.
so,
Really sorry. Just give me 30 seconds. I'm just gonna turn the oven off, and I'll be
sure,
right back.
no problem.
Okay, I'm back.
Sure, no problem. Don't burn your food, man.
So, um, yeah, no, so I'll let it cool down for a bit. Um, okay, so I've heard a variation of this for, um, basically, okay, so there are many things that I could say to this. I guess my first question I would ask you is that given that you think that this very basic observation about the Big Bang and relativity leads to a contradiction, meaning that the entire thing is like a non viable model, do you think that all of the professional physicists have simply missed this? Are they dumb? Are they lying? What's going on there?
No, none at all. I'm not saying they're dumb, and they obviously have not missed it. As a matter of fact,
Okay.
um,
Because they
the
don't
way,
seem to think that it's in an unviable, contradictory position. So
well,
I'm wondering what the difference is
they
that
actually
accounts for that.
they're taking it on faith because they've actually admitted they don't know what has happened. So they use the equation t equals 0. That's as far back they can go. They actually don't even know what t equals 0 is. T equals 0 means no time at all whatsoever. T represents time. And so they're trying to extrapolate what happened before then. But there is no empirical model. There's nothing that they can use to test as we use in science. There's nothing that they can observe. There is nothing that they can put together. All they have are models, which are ideas that they have in their mind. And I know myself, as a background in IT, computer programmer, whenever, even if you're putting together a model, you have an intricate bias that's always going to come into that model. But the whole point is no one knows who's taken that stance. Yes, they will have suggestions and thoughts and ideas on it, but they have no way to prove it. They have no way to provide any empirical evidence. So basically, all it is, it's an idea. It really comes down to faith. Um,
Do you think that's how they would describe it, or do you think that they're just missing that,
well,
or are they lying about that?
that's not how they would describe it because, for example, I can't remember which atheist said this, and I can Google it really quick to get the quote, but I'm sure you've heard this before. But they say that we see design in nature a lot, but our brains are hardwired to see at design, and so when we're doing science, even if we happen to see a design, we are to exclude all possibility of any uh, divine influence upon that, and we need to look for a naturalistic explanation. So automatically, they take out the possibility that there could be something that is outside of nature, outside of space and time as we know it. So what we
Okay.
have,
Well, look, I think like I would. So I'm not sure if this is the most productive node of the conversation we can go down. I think if it's all right with you, we can rewind a little bit,
sure.
and go in a different direction because I think like quoting scientists and what they say, what they don't say might not be the best route.
Well,
So
you're asking me about scientists, so I was trying to give you the
yeah, yeah,
quotes.
yeah. I was just wanting to understand your perspective because you seem to be saying like that you're pointing out something that they're not aware of, but I gather you're saying they're aware of it. They just sort of discerning it based on faith or something. Um, which yeah, it's a bit of a rabbit hole. So okay, I think I understand now. Um, so I've heard. I'll tell you what I've heard. Like many, 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 many variations of this.
Okay.
The universe exists and it came into existence, and this requires an explanation. And you know, naturalism, science, etc., doesn't account for how this could have come into existence, and the only rational explanation is that God, some some variation of spaceless, timeless, immaterial, spiritual, ethereal, magical, supernatural, whatever adjectives you want to describe, must be the reason why all of this exists. And then the natural question to come up is, okay, so if the universe needs an explanation for its existence, then why does God not need an explanation for its existence? And then the answer is something like, well, God doesn't is not bound by time, so we don't have to worry about it. Is that more or less the position that you're taking?
Uh, a little bit, not entirely. Um,
Okay.
I think you and I both can agree that there has to be a cause for the universe to come
Nope.
to existence, right? I'm just saying there's a cause. I'm not going one way or another. Could we both agree
I
on
I,
that?
I don't I don't necessarily agree. I don't know.
You don't
Because I
necessarily.
don't know if it has a beginning in the traditional sense of like, because a lot of the intuitions around time sort of break down when you consider the extremes, and like human brains are not really wired to contemplate the extreme boundaries of reality. So I haven't seen any specific reason to think that time in some form uh, could have not simply extended back infinitely.
Hmm. Well,
So I'm open to the possibility that that's impossible, but I haven't seen any reason to think so.
yeah. The problem that you'd have to deal with though is, and again, I'm not. I know I'm kind of, as the phrase we use here over in America is, keep beating a dead horse. Um,
Mhm.
um, Einstein's theory of relativity, which has been proven down to 5 decimal points to show that space time are combined together. Plus, we have the laws of thermodynamics, and those are two things that are well established and proven in science, and that's something that we have to take into context.
I
And
understand that, but these, as you pointed out correctly, are models, and they are models with limitations. And the explicitly stated limitations of these models occur at the extremes, at the beginning, at the very high energy, at the very small. So these are all areas where the confidence of these models is the least.
yeah, but then again, I guess I'd have to ask you, where do you come from? If the majority of the scientific community agrees on this, what makes your view? Do you think? And I'm not attack. Don't take this as a personal attack. I don't mean
No,
it
no,
that
no,
way at
it's
all.
totally fine. No, I
Uh,
get your point.
what?
So
Why why do you
I'm
feel
not
your view is more correct?
Yeah, I'm not actually disagreeing with anything specific that the scientific community has said. It's to my understanding, it is not the consensus scientific position that it is physically impossible for time in some form to have existed indefinitely prior to the Big Bang. My understanding is that this is where the limitations of our ability to model things break down, and it's a big question mark at that point, as you alluded to earlier. So uh, I could be wrong about this, but I'm fairly certain that it is by no means the consensus scientific position that time itself uh, started 14.5 billion years ago. Um, and this is just the terminus, the termination point of tracing the curves and the lines back
Okay.
to predicted origin.
Okay. So what they do is, they use a mathematical model to go back.
I
So
understand. Yeah.
and that's what it goes off of.
Like,
I
let me
hear.
just float this with you. Like, imagine, for the sake of argument, just a
Sure.
dot that contains all the energy in the universe, sort of floating, in its own existence for 10 octovigintillion years prior to that happening. Like, my understanding is that such a dot, like, is not really against any of the existing models. Um, Further, for broader context, like, to my understanding, like, time is a description of the like evolving parameters of objects, and without reference to objects, like the notion of time is kind of ambiguous, because again, it's all like everything we use to measure time, everything we use to define time relates to ostensibly regular progressions in the physical universe of like physical processes.
Right. Well, I mean, for example, today is my birthday. I just turned
Hmm.
50. And
Congratulations.
well, I don't know, I'm a half century. I feel rather old right now. Um but let me ask you this. Do you agree with the singularity theory then, or is there something else that you go along with?
I, I have no knowledge on it. Again, I will default to, I will defer to the scientific consensus on such matters. So I don't know.
Okay. Um I guess this is something that we're just going to have to agree to disagree on, because you're talking about the scientific consensus and what I have studied, and I'm not going to Christian websites or anything like that. I'm literally going to universities. I'm going to published papers such as in Nature, science journals, and stuff like that, where um,
Mhm.
from what I have read, there is a consensus that there was everything came from a singularity, and that time is
Sure, sure.
wasn't existent back then. So I'm not trying to
Yeah, yeah. So
argue with that. I'm just saying those are the sources where I've gotten my information from. So um, as far as time goes, I'm sure you've heard the theory about if you go, the faster you go to the speed of light, it's almost like time travel. Time is normal relative to you, but you're actually jumping ahead in the future relative to the people who are in the present. So say if I go half the speed or three-quarters of the speed of time to the nearest star, and by the time I return, the time frame on the Earth here would be advanced. It would be much further along. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head because it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning my time, so I'm not in the top of my gang, and I apologize for that. But I'm
mhm,
sure you've heard exactly what I'm talking about. And then, of course, then we have the phenomena of the black hole, where it appears for a while that time actually stops. So, and just you and I talking itself, seconds are going by and by. There's also been instruments placed on different elevations and also satellites in orbit that, even though minuscule differences, we have
yeah,
noticed that
I
there is
accept
difference in
relativity is
time.
real, 100%.
Yeah.
I totally accept that. Let me just read you this, okay? Because
Yeah.
and again,
Maybe I
to be
confused it.
clear,
Uh,
disclaimer,
yeah, I'm
I
probably. Go ahead.
so I just hit this with GBT, okay, and I totally recognize the limitations of this, and I'm happy to dig into this further with you. But this is more or less what I thought when this is what I suspected it would say. So I asked, is the scientific consensus that time itself began to exist at the Big Bang, or could it have extended prior to that? Is the latter possibility taken seriously, or is there a strong consensus otherwise? Um, and the answer that it gave is there's no single unanimous consensus that time itself began. The mainstream picture is that in the context of standard general relativity plus the hot Big Bang, space and time as we know them trace back to a boundary. But the serious physics community does not treat that as the final word. Blah, 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 blah. It goes on for a bit. So that was more or less my read of the situation.
Right, right.
Do you agree with that, or is that kind of contrary to what your perspective was?
Well, actually, I found that kind of interesting because I actually went to ChatGPT talking about the exact same subject, and it came up with a
Mhm.
different answer. And I can actually give you a link to the video that I went through on that, if you want to look to it differently, where they did say
One
that.
thing, one thing I'll caution you on is
Hmm.
using GPT to do like complex novel theory crafting. A lot
Right.
of people run into like these crazy sort of validation loops where GPT will kind of uh, agree with your perspective by default and like develop things to an extent that doesn't closely track with like the ground reality of things.
I agree with you on that, and I think it's doing the same thing with you. Because
Okay.
I was asking a
Good.
lot of open-ended questions. So the point that I'm trying to make is Chat GPT. First of all, even though they call it AI, what is it mostly? It's a chatbot, and
Well, that's just a term that you apply to, uh, like what I mean, chatbot. It's like saying a human is just a person. Like it contains a lot of information.
well, it
But I agree.
does.
Like it's definitely not the be all end all. It's you have to take everything that it says with a grain of salt. Absolutely, I totally
Right,
agree.
right, right. So I mean, and now I'm talking for someone who's had years and years in programming experience. So I'm just breaking it down in the simplest form. Now I'm not saying it's just a chat bot. It's obviously pretty advanced, but in the end, they're still, like you said, and I will agree with you. You can't take everything that it says, word for word, the literal truth. It's going to try to adjust its answer to how and what question you answer or ask it, and tailor its response that way.
Yeah.
In my discussion during the chat bot, or with Chat GPT, and this was just me. I was just messing around. It actually is one that, and this, I didn't put this idea in there. I asked, and open ended. Would it be considered a question of faith about the scientists? And again, I didn't bring this issue up. I wasn't leading it in that particular direction. So
Well,
it will
yeah, like
answer one way or another. So I mean, I think going to
you
chatbot
can
and
get it
stuff
to
like
answer
that.
in both directions, like you said. So
Yeah.
again, maybe you're right. It's probably too ambiguous and nuanced and hot of a topic to refer to like GPT. Um, so regardless, look, even if it is like, let's just for the sake of argument, I'm happy to accept that. Like, let's say that the Big Bang was the beginning of time as well, and everything kind of started from there as the beginning. Um, at a certain point, you just have to kind of have like a brute fact of reality, right?
Hmm.
So, in your view, you're positing the brute fact of this complex, intelligent, spiritual being that creates universes sometimes. And I'm positing the brute fact of the universe simply existing, and with whether it's caused by something else or not, it's ambiguous, but perhaps it just exists by itself. Um, like why do you need to add an extra layer of like an additional unjustified assumption of a deity?
Well, for me, it's not unjustified. And I'm sure you've heard this argument before, but I'm going to go back to it.
Yeah.
For me, I brought up earlier the concept of seeing design in nature, which for me,
Yeah.
I do. And I equate that to either a painting or a building. If I look at a building, I know an architect designed it.
Hmm.
A construction company went in and built it, and there the building stands. I see an
Hmm.
intelligence and a purpose behind that building. When I look around the world today, and even the stars in the sky, and how it just the way the Earth functions, for me, I see a design behind that. I don't see something as that as a result of something as just random chance. So
Okay.
that's how
Is
I view
God's
at it.
existence is God's existence random chance in your view?
No, because I don't know how other Christians have answered this to you, but I believe God is a spirit, and a spirit is something that
Right.
isn't physical. And
Sure, but it still exists.
since he's not physical, he's not bound by the same laws that we are. We're not bound by theory relative. He's not bound by the theory of relativity or any other physical laws, and that
Sure.
he exists. Matter of fact, I mean that there is a scientific consensus out there that there are more than just the four dimensions that we can feel. There's upwards to at least 10 different dimensions. Um, it is, to me, feasible, and it could be logical, that there is a being who exists where time itself doesn't exist. He's outside of time, and that he does have the power to create and to begin, and to be able to do all this stuff. He's not limited by what you and I are limited by. To me, I don't see that
Right.
as unreasonable.
Sure, but you do you see the fact you're still positing a lot of very specific things that you claim to exist in some form or another.
Hmm. But at the same time,
So, so how
um,
do you know that that exists?
well, a lot of it's spiritual, a lot of it's faith. I think both you and I have faith in certain issues. There's a lot of things that we believe that I don't think either one of us can prove empirically. There's a
Mhm.
point in time that we have to take out a step of faith in believing in um, our worldview. To
Okay.
you correctly stated you're atheist agnostic. I don't believe there's such a thing as a true atheist, because to be a true atheist, you would literally have to know everything there possibly is to know, just to know without to know with certainty that this is all there is.
Not necessarily.
Gnosticism, it would be actually, because I mean, really considering how much of the natural world and of the universe do we know right now if we were to write a percentage down?
Well, okay, maybe it is necessary because I mean, from my perspective, you can't know anything at all for certain, even that you exist. So, like, I take a very sort of
Right,
uh,
and
epistemological skepticism view of everything. So, I suppose you're right.
yeah, and that comes from actually, I think Kant. That was his philosophy, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah. Well, here's the issue: is that like for any statement that you make, you can always ask, "How do you know that that's true?"
Hmm.
And either you have no answer, in which case it's just kind of an arbitrary statement that has no basis, or you have to justify it with reference to something else.
Right,
And no matter how far back you go, you either end up with an axiom, or you end up with circular logic, or you end up with an infinite regression.
right. Well, let me on the same topic. I want to ask you a question, but it bears reference to the topic that we're talking on. I just want to know
Sure.
where your stance is on this. Um,
Yeah.
what do you have, a belief or a standing? Do you believe that we're the result of an accident, as in Darwinianism, or that type of evolution, or do you have no stance on that at all whatsoever? What's your stance on
Uh,
that?
are you asking me if I believe in the like uh, theory of evolution?
Yeah, basically, the molecules to man. You know how it's been taught that everything is a
So
result of an accident. Basically, we had the Big Bang, gases formed, we had Type One stars that
yeah, that's
exploded, all that kind of
all
stuff.
fine with me. Yeah.
Okay, you agree with that? Um,
Yes.
so my question to you would be then, if you're the result of an accident and your brain is just a matter of random.
Accident sort of smuggles in a few connotations about intention and
Okay, well,
like it's all
let's.
sort of an unintentional
How about if I
process.
use the
So
word randomness? How about if I use the word randomness? Would that be a more acceptable phrase for you?
yeah. We can
Because
say like yeah, whatever. I think we understand each other. So yeah, randomness, accident, I'm fine with. I'm just pointing out that it does have some connotations that aren't necessarily entailed by what I literally believe. But yeah.
well, I'm trying. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's definitely not my
No,
intention.
I would say that the universe began under conditions that I do not understand.
Hmm.
Then it developed according to the known physical laws of the universe. The manner in which it developed resulted in abiogenesis and then evolution.
Okay, and the law of biogenesis is that life cannot come from non-life, right? But anyway, the
Yeah,
point that
that's
I'm.
a fake law.
Mm, okay, so my question really comes down to this: randomness, or whatever term you want to use. I'm not trying to use anything as far as controlling or anything like that, but how you came to being, how you came to how you are now. Um, if there was no particular way that it was controlled, how can you trust what your mind is thinking is actually telling you the reality? How can you trust what your actual thoughts are saying?
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume that your internal reasoning process is reliable.
Right.
I could easily ask the same question to a theist. What
Right.
if you were created to be irrational and you would have no way of knowing?
Um, well, actually, I'd have a different answer, but you mentioned the word assume. So when I
Yes,
hear the word assume, to me that equates to faith. You're assuming something, just as I'm assuming there's a creator. So there's a
sure.
faith business a part of
You
that.
can, yeah. So when I say assume, what I'm referring to is axioms that are necessary to interpret information. Full stop. So you need to assume that you exist. You need to assume that your internal reasoning process is reliable. You need to assume that your sensory information that you're receiving is generally reliable, because otherwise you're just incapable of navigating the world.
Right.
And you cannot ground these assumptions any further than that because you need to invoke them to ground them. Um, so yeah, so if you're just saying like, hey, I axiomatically assume that God is real without further justification, that's fine. That's perfectly coherent. You can do that. It's just that it's impossible to convince anyone else on that ground because you like if they don't share your axioms, then you can't convince them of an axiom because an axiom has no basis by definition.
Okay. Um, I would agree in part with what you're saying, definitely. Um, you know who C.S. Lewis is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There is a quote, and I don't mean this to sound condescending or anything like that. I'm not trying to insult you in one
No,
way.
no. Go ahead.
Um,
I'm very hard
but
to offend.
because I'm not trying to make this into an offensive debate. But he said
No, no, all good.
something which I think is actually pretty profound, and I think it applies to both of us. Both of our worldviews is what it comes down to. You can't see what I see because you don't have the eyes to see what I see. In the same way, I can't see what you see because I don't have your eyes to see what you see. So we're coming from two
Mhm.
different worldviews. For
Right.
me, I do see evidence all around, but what I see as evidence, you don't accept as evidence. So how am I to prove to you using evidence that you've already rejected that there is a God if you've already,
Evidence
rejected it?
by which you mean your invocation of God as an axiom?
No, for me, I see evidence of design. I see evidence just by, like I mentioned
Right.
briefly, how the universe is designed, natural law.
Well,
I use the
I guess I
example
would
of a
ask
building.
you if someone tells you, when I look at the universe, I see no evidence of design whatsoever. I see evidence of a random process. Do
Hmm.
you accept that?
No, I don't. So again,
Okay.
that's where it
So
comes down
why
to.
should it convince me in the other direction?
See, and that's why I brought up that C.S. Lewis quote, is
Yeah.
because we're both seeing the world from different visions, different viewpoints. And so if both of us are rejecting what the other person is saying because we see the world in different ways, how is either one of us going to convince the other that they're true? And that's
Yeah.
I think that is the crux of the matter right there.
Well, look, I guess I would appeal to parsimony because we seem to be making assumptions to ground our worldview, which is, of course, necessary. However, I am making slightly fewer assumptions than you, and we sort of end up in a similar epistemological position where again, you can say that I'm sort of arbitrarily assuming the universe to be sort of self existing, but you're assuming the universe plus God. So it just seems like you're adding an extra step without necessity to me.
Well, from what I'm seeing on your end is you're seeing the universe plus something, and that time could have existed during the singularity. So I'm actually seeing the same thing from you. That's how I'm viewing what you're saying.
What's the plus something in my case?
So when we were talking about the singularity and you were talking about the scientific consensus, you talked about ChatGPT, um, and I talked about how I was reading scientific papers that time could have somehow existed or singularity could have gone off. Um, without having to rely upon the theory of relativity. But the whole point is that we're both assuming there's a beginning somehow, and we both believe that there's a reasoning behind
I'm
that.
Yeah, I'm not actually assuming that there's a beginning, and I'm not assuming that there's a reason behind it. As I said, I'm agnostic on both of those points as well.
Okay. Um, to be honest with you, I don't know how to take this any further because to me it's obvious there was a beginning. If we rewind time backwards, and like I said, the universe is proven to
Sure.
be constantly expanding. And
Yeah. So when you say universe, what I so the universe to me can
mhm,
mean two things.
okay,
There's the like fabric of reality, that which exists, like some form of existence in any capacity whatsoever, and then there's all of the physical stuff contained within that. And it sounds like many of the things that you've raised with relation to the universe apply to the second category, where you're talking about that which exists within the fabric of reality, the objects and energy, etc., within existence. Whereas I'm talking about the universe, what I'm talking about is everything. So that includes the sort of the canvas, so to speak, upon which everything exists. So what I'm saying is that I don't know. Like I agree with you that the physical stuff that's on the canvas, so to speak, probably started around the Big Bang and didn't exist prior to that. But my agnosticism relates to the canvas itself.
Okay. So I guess my question to you would be, how could you empirically test that canvas theory within a scientific setting?
I'm not positing it as a theory. I'm just saying that there's like a distinction between
Well,
that like existence itself and that which exists.
I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but the question is how do we test that? What you're
Yeah,
saying,
you can't test it.
and so what I'm going off of is what we can test as far as when I'm talking about universe, not talking about
Sure,
God or creating
but
or
the
anything
the
like that.
appropriate the appropriate answer to something that you can't test that is still like logically plausible is just like agnosticism.
Well, then we have to deal with the law of non-contradictions too, as well, right? Do you
Yeah.
agree that that law exists?
It's another one of it's like an axiom that you have to assume. You can't justify that, but it's just an axiom.
Hmm.
It doesn't physically exist.
So for me to say that my cat is laying on a pillow, but my cat
And
is
not laying
instead
on a pillow.
actually living on the floor or is laying on the floor, that's contradicting itself. That defies the law of non-contradiction. I know I'm breaking this down very, very simply, very simple like, but I mean, that's the basics of it.
Yeah.
Logically, that doesn't match.
Well, more precisely, you could say your cat is sitting on a pillow, and you could say your cat is not sitting on a pillow. That more neatly is impossible because it could be both on the floor and on a pillow, for example. Um, so yeah, but so I accept the law of non-contradiction. I am yet to hear anything from you that establishes why uh, there's a contradiction specifically in anything that I've posited.
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding your example of the canvas. So
Mhm.
when I talk about the universe, let's go back to that because I think we're still on that subject.
Sure.
I'm talking about stuff that can be empirically tested. We can take it into a lab, we
Right.
can do
The
scientific
physical stuff that
experience, all the
exists. Yeah.
physical stuff. And then you're
Yeah.
talking about a canvas from maybe I am misunderstanding what you're saying here, but the canvas, as in existence and stuff like that, from the way that you've presented it to me, or at least the way that I'm understanding, is something that we can't empirically test. So am I
Okay. I see.
misunderstanding
I
you
see.
that way?
Slightly. What I'm referring to is that the canvas may have pre-existed the physical stuff on the canvas, if you know what I mean. So I'm not saying that you can't test the existence of the canvas. I would say the canvas's existence is kind of self-evident because all I'm meaning it as is that which all the stuff that exists in. Like if you imagine the universe as like a movie playing out, like the canvas that I'm referring to is just the screen that it occurs on. So, uh, yeah, I guess you could call that space time, I suppose. Um,
Okay. Let me ask you this. The canvas has always existed. Um,
yeah. And I'm not claiming that. I'm just saying that, like, I don't know that that's not necessarily the case. Like,
okay, well,
I haven't ruled that out.
you haven't ruled that out because, okay, I'm just going to say because coming from my hearing, I know you haven't ruled it out. It's just something that you're saying. But that sounds almost similar to the argument that a deist would make. God has always existed. There's the canvas, and then we have the material world that we can do empirical evidence on. So
Sure,
they
but I'm
sound
not
very similar
positing
to
like
me.
any degree of intelligence or consciousness to that.
I know you're not, but there's still a lot of similarities between the two claims.
Sure, sure.
So,
Um, yeah. Anyway, man, it's been really good talking to you. I'm gonna go have
all right.
dinner with
Well, thank you for stopping in. I
But
really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy your day.
yeah, you too, man.
All right, take care. So the issue that we had there is an issue in logic, and when I tried nailing him down on that, he um he wasn't willing to make a commitment one way or another. Basically, Immanuel Kant came out with, to break it down as simply as I possibly can, is that we can't really know that something is there just by looking at it. We have to touch it, we have to feel it, and even then, it's our mind processing it, so we can't even understand if it's real. The problem with that is there's two problems, and they're logical problems. Number one, that the first claim you can't empirically test. You can't empirically test it. So there's no way to prove that first claim. And then the second part of his argument, again, you can't prove that as well. So there's no way to prove either one of those claims. So he's making unprovable false statements to begin with, and then he builds his entire theory off of that. And this is what this gentleman, I assume he's from England, lives from. That's what he was trying to base things off of. So when I was trying to nail him down on that example he used in the canvas, he just went back to, well, I just can't assume anything. I just don't believe it. And that just goes back to Immanuel Kant, and that's currently what modern atheism slash agnosticism is based off of today. And when you start pointing out the hypocrisy, really is what it is, the law of non-contradiction in what they're saying, they don't have much response, and they end up leaving, and which is basically what we heard right here. So that's basically what happened. And I did want to use that C.S. Lewis quote. We do have these different worldviews. Now, for me, there is evidence everywhere. It's easily proven. The laws of the universe, how it's set up, the violation of there were no laws or anything during the singularity, and he was not telling the truth when he's saying the majority of scientists affirm that there was no time during the singularity. Actually, it's quite the opposite, and I called him out on that. That's why I brought up the ChatGPT issue and how it came up differently. So I kind of caught him on that as well. And so basically, he realized there wasn't a way that he could argue me on this, and we didn't even get into the issues of morality on it. But I started showing him the cracks in the holes of his thinking, and he just decided to leave. So, but that's the error. If you start off with a false assumption, anything you base off of that assumption remains false. You can't start off with something false and end up being true. So Immanuel Kant, or Kant, however you want to pronounce his last name, he started off with a false assumption and then based everything off of that. So, so that's what I was really trying to point out to him. Especially his canvas theory. How can you realize that everything is there? He doesn't know. That's Immanuel Kant right there. Those are false assumptions. I mean, we're thinking, we're talking, we're communicating, we're understanding the words that each other are saying. And this isn't something that is imaginary. It's something that's going on. We have science, we have natural laws. There is plenty of evidence to back up that there is a reality. And what it really comes down to is, how did this universe, physical as well as with all of the laws, and I specifically focused on Einstein's theory of relativity and the theory of thermodynamics, both the first and second definition of them, where energy can't be created. That's the first part. And second, law of thermodynamics, which is entropy. and also that we can observe the universe constantly expanding. So, mathematically, scientists have done this through mathematical papers. They have rewound it, and they can only bring it back to t representing time equals 0, and even then they can't even imagine that. So they recognize a point when time doesn't exist because the theory of relativity explicitly states that space and time coexist. Matter of fact, scientists always refer to it as space-time, not as two different things. And you can't take out space, you can't take out time, you can't take out matter, you take out energy without the entire thing falling apart. And is due to the Einstein's theory of relativity that we have nuclear power, uh, that we have been able to have so many scientific advancements. Um, it's very well proven, and so is the law of thermodynamics, and then also the law of non-contradiction. Um, when I brought up the law of biogenesis, he said that was a false theory. He didn't even want to go into that because that law is true. It has been established. It has never, ever been observed that life comes from non-life. It has never been observed. And even a lot of evolutionists, hardcore evolutionists, when I get deep into the discussion with them about that, ask for evidence. I'll point to the Cambrian layer, the sedimentary layer. That's the first layer where all life and forms suddenly appear. And there's no transitional forms. They're fully formed creatures. That's why they call it the Cambrian explosion. Before that, there's nothing, and then all of a sudden you have fully formed creatures. Where are the transitional forms? Now, a lot of people like to use natural selection to back up the theory of evolution, but changing of a beak or a pigment to help you survive. If you're a rabbit living in the Arctic and you have brown fur instead of white fur, you're more likely to die to a predator than a rabbit that has white fur, because you're going to be a lot easier to see, and it's all genetic. But it doesn't prove that that rabbit is turning into a seal or into a polar bear or into something else. And most, when you go to a museum and you look at fossils, really what you're looking at is most fossils out there, they've only found fragments of bones, and then it's up to the imagination of the anthropologist or the paleontologist and then the artists themselves to draw up what they think the animal looked like with only partial. I don't think there is a single skeleton out there of a dinosaur that we found that is 100% complete. And I find it kind of funny that the funniest thing I've ever seen is looking at a T-Rex covered in feathers. That's just the most hilarious thing in the world, because they're trying to prove that birds came from dinosaurs. So when we actually look at how birds and dinosaurs are actually designed, the whole bone structure is completely different. And even the supposed evolution of whales is really interesting. It's ridiculous. I mean, even the evolution of the eye, how complex the eye is. If one part of the eye doesn't work, you can't see. And not just the eye itself, you got to consider the optic nerve, the connection to the brain, how the brain has to process the image. First thing it has to do is it has to flip the image around, because the image comes into your eye upside down. Then your brain has to process that into a way that you can understand and you can make out what you're seeing. And that is almost going into metaphysics. I mean, there's so much stuff involved into that, and you take out just one part, even the lens, take out the rods and the cones, take out the muscular control, take out the optic nerve or damage the optic nerve, any of that, and you're not able to see. And we're just talking about the eye here. Yet we're supposed to assume all of this came together by randomness, chance, just doesn't make any logical sense. So when I pinned this guy down on what he was saying, all of a sudden he had to leave the room because um, he started to see the holes that was poking in his theory. So it was very polite. We were having a discussion, and I wasn't looking for an argument with him. But that's what you have to do. And hopefully, something I've said, maybe the Lord will plant a seed in his mind and cause him to think. Because Immanuel Kant, his initial premise is an error. And so everything that he says beyond that is an error. So you can't, what he says from the beginning is wrong. Now, to those of you, I am streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. If you do want to join in on the chat, if you want to talk about this or anything about Christianity, the focus, I'm not just focusing on evolution or anything like that, but if there's anything that you want to talk on, the link is in the chat. But let me go ahead and post it again. And if you want to join me over there, I'm not going to show any faces or anything like that. But just click on that link. So it used to be Skype. They changed it over to Teams. I don't think you need to create an account. I think you can come in anonymously. If you do have to create an account, it's free, and I'm the one hosting it. So if you want to speak that way instead of going onto a Discord server, or you can go onto the Discord server, Politics and Religion. I'm in the Going Fishing Christian one-on-one. I'm Christian Phil. More than welcome to come in. And like I said, I'm open to discuss with you what's on your mind. So I don't know. We'll just sit here for a little bit and see if anyone else decides to come in and use their logic. It was kind of interesting, and I'm not trying to poke fun at this gentleman at all. He's talking about logic, but everything he was saying, there was no logic behind it. When I use the example of non-contradiction, cat on the pillow, cat on the floor, they can't be both at the same time. But then he tried to combine the two. Well, the cat's on the pillow, which is on the floor. That's not what I said. The cat could be on the pillow, on the couch. Well, okay, well, the cat's on the couch, on the pillow, which is on the couch, which is on the floor. Do you see the error, the way they try to weasel? He's trying to find a way out of it because he know that he's been caught up in a contradiction. So hopefully, it's my prayer that God will reach out and touch him and show him that Gnosticism really isn't the way to go. To not really have an answer for anything, to have some sort of belief that what we see and what's around us, we can't fully know, we can't fully understand. Or as a Christian, there is a perfect explanation. And I compare contrasted. He was asking me, how can I say God existed, when he was using the same argument to back up his side, the canvas argument. So I turned it around on him. So that's the way we have to go to. Have to realize that over 95% of the world believes in a creator of one form or another. So those who hold on to atheism or Gnosticism are actually in the minority. So the burden of proof is actually on them. It's not on us. And, bringing up the singularity issue. Again, they can provide no evidence. He's trying to quote, the majority of scientists have a consensus on this. Well, that's not true, especially when you look at the scientific papers and researches. It actually is a scientific consensus that there was a singularity because it goes all the way back. They use math as a calculation and until they reach zero. And then they know nothing beyond that. Everything stops. We know that because of the theory of relativity by Einstein. And without time, there cannot be. And seriously, when t equals 0, that means there is no time. And when we start going into the negatives and all that, I mean, it gets even worse. They can't imagine. So how can a singularity explode and create a universe? So he tried to avoid that at all possible costs because he knows that there's a problem with that. So actually, Gnosticism has more of a problem with its theology than Christianity does. So I was kind of surprised about how quickly he left. It was a very polite conversation, and I think he left because he realized he was starting to see the holes that were being poked into it. But we had a polite conversation. That's all that matters. And in the end, I pray the Lord uses that to open his eyes and realize that there is a reality out there. There is a physical world, and we can measure it, and we can get empirical evidence from it, and that it's not all imaginary. And I just hope something like that happens. So anyway, if anyone wants to join me, here I am, Discord, Politics and Religion, going fishing. You can join me on Microsoft Teams, or if you want, you can even type in chat. That's quite all right, and I'll try to answer there. But I prefer to speak voice to voice. However, it is getting rather late my time. I'm going to give it a few more minutes. It's almost 2:30 in the morning my time, and I do need to get some sleep. So if I don't have any activity pretty soon, I'm going to go ahead and call it for the night. And we have someone here. Hello, how are you doing?
What's up, dude?
Not much. Well, actually, I'm up rather late my time, so it's beyond my bedtime. How are you doing?
Well, they're muting me in another server, so
You're on another server?
yeah, and I got muted, so I'm moving servers now.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome to the server in this room, I guess. Is there something you want to talk about, or?
What kind of Christian are you?
I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I don't really consider myself denominational.
Yes, you're non-denominational Protestant then, right?
No. If I were to claim a denomination, the closest would be Baptist, which did not come out of the Reformation. We can actually try.
That came from Martin Luther, brother. Yeah.
No,
That would be Protestantism, yeah.
No, actually, it didn't. We can actually trace the origins all the way back to the early church.
Yeah,
So,
baptism is an early practice, but I'm saying baptism sect of Christianity, that's a Lutheran Martin Luther sect of Christianity.
no,
That's why I'm a non-denominational Christian.
no,
So
it's not actually. You're gonna have to prove that claim.
it is. I just told you, brother. You gotta. That's what I'm telling you. What do you think Baptist comes from? The Baptist Church. That comes from the Lutheran Church.
Actually, the Baptist came from the word Anabaptist, which was an insult back in those times. It meant rebaptizers.
Look at it, brother. I don't know how you don't know this already.
Actually, I do know this. I've
okay. Let me look it up for you. I'm gonna read it for you. You're not gonna look it up. I got you, brother.
Okay. I think I know why you get muted, and I'm not here for an argument tonight. I want to have a nice discussion. And if you're a Christian, we shouldn't be talking to each other like this. So,
yes, a Baptist church is a type of Protestant church. Is that something you disagree with?
I definitely disagree with that. We did not come
Why
from
would you?
the Catholic Church at all whatsoever. It was not a part of the Reformation.
You got to know what sect is what sect, buddy. That's all it is. You say, you know why I get muted. I'm not being disrespectful.
You are being disrespectful, my friend. So I'll just wait until he leaves. So the history of the Baptist Church, it actually goes way, 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 way back. They were called different sects at different times. he wants to use the word sex with different denominations, but it's gone all the way back to the beginning. First of all, what is the foundation of the Baptist Church? There is no overruling government. It's independent. It is you have the bishop or the pastor, and the only one that overrules the pastor is God directly. We belong to no organization. We always held on to the 66 books of the Bible. We've always um, taken scripture over man's opinion and are strictly Bible believers. We take, as the Bible says, let God be true and every man be a liar. We let the Bible form our own opinions, not the other way around. So, and then also him coming in, I was really, an anti-Christ attitude. I was not loving and rather insulting. So, I had to end like that, which was unfortunate. But if you really want to look at the history of the Baptist Church, I can go right down through the line for you. So,
Phil.
hey, Sizzles, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Well, trying to keep my mind off what happened today in Utah.
Literally, me too. That was horrible. That
Yeah.
is like the amount of not only we had Kirk and then we had the Colorado shooting
And then
and then we
also,
had apparently kid that the dude that drives into a daycare,
yeah, then also
which is crazy.
the Ukrainian woman who just immigrated over here. She was murdered
Yes,
ruthlessly,
I
and
know.
it's remember we were talking
It's
about
ridiculous.
last night about the birthing pains, and how things are, you know, getting closer and
Mm-hmm.
closer together. It's just what I'm talking about. It wasn't like this years ago. And Charlie Kirk, he was a Christian, and
Yep.
I'm not going to say I agree with everything that he said there, but
Mm-hmm.
I agreed with the majority of what he said. He was pro-life, and he was open about his Christian faith, and he got the students to think instead of being indoctrinated. And
Right.
I really respect that, and he took a stand. And it's unfortunate that the way I view the world, and I think we talked about it a little bit last night, is there's only two sides. You're either the child of the devil spiritually, or you're the child of God. And evil
Right.
always brings forth death. It always does. You look at everything. Good always brings forth life. And since no one could refute what Charlie Kirk was saying, during the debates and discussions, they did what they always do, is they just ended up taking him out. And then we also look at regardless if you're a supporter of President Trump or not, we had 2 assassination attempts on him. And right now I'm going through the process of, I know God is in control of everything. And my question is, God, why did you allow this to happen to Charlie Kirk? But then I remember Romans 8:28, which says, all good things to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. So I know God's in control, and I know something is going to come out of this. I just don't know what, but I'm going to hold on to the faith that maybe this will start a new environment in America. Maybe shine more light on the evil that's going on. I don't know. But
Right.
I've been heartbroken about it all day. So
Me too. It's because I saw so many videos on it, as in like literally the videos of him getting shot. And like as a kid, just because I was so uh tortured essentially, that I used to watch gore videos just on a daily basis because I was suicidal, I was depressed, right?
Mm.
And this is the only one that bothered me because I think it's the fact that I did not listen to him on a daily basis at all. And the only reason I knew of him in the first place is because of that one video where he was debating abortion with people.
Mm.
And I'm just like, I don't know the guy. Oh, but man, maybe if I didn't turn to Christ recently, it wouldn't have messed with me as much. But it did for some reason, and I'm just like,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you're right. You know, you turn to Christ, you've got a new heart, a new spirit inside of you. I've never met him, I've never talked to him, but inside I'm crying not for him because I know the Bible says absent from the body, present with the Lord, and Charlie's in a good place now. But my heart is crying for his family, for his children,
yeah, the kids and the
and
babies.
and the people in his organization and his good friends. Those are the people that are hurting and left behind. And those are the ones that my heart is really breaking for. And I actually used to watch a lot of Charlie Kirk's. I'm just because I'm not into debate for debate's sake, but I like listening to the answers that he would give to tough questions, just so I could learn. Because I'm out, life is always a process of continually learning. And like I said, I can't say I agreed with him on everything, but a good majority of what he said, I did agree with him on. And he did do a lot of good for the country, I believe. Um, but it's just sad. But knowing how he went out, it was pretty much instantaneous death. So I take comfort in knowing that he didn't suffer. Um,
Right,
he was shot in the neck, and you lose that much blood loss, you're pretty much you're gone.
right.
So he didn't have to suffer physically. Unlike that lady that was murdered, who just came over from Ukraine. I can't remember her name, and even if I could, I'd probably slaughter it trying to pronounce it.
Right.
Um,
I
but
think it was Irina, maybe.
no, she came from Ukraine. She was an uh, asylum seeker from Ukraine.
Yep.
But and some guy just went up and killed her, and then bragged afterwards, "Hey, I just killed me a white person." There's so much hatred out there today, and that's, I guess, it's the hatred that I'm seeing that's going on in this world that's really breaking my heart. I've tried to avoid it, but I've gone on Twitter and I've read some leftist comments, and here they are celebrating and cheering
I
all
know.
this stuff that's happened. And to me, that points out there is no gray area. There is evil and there's good. There is no in between. I mean, even
Mm-hmm.
I am not a fan at all of Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton or Biden. But if something like that happened to them, I wouldn't be cheering that on. They're still human beings created in the image of God, and because of that, I still have a love for them, even though I disagree with a lot of what they stand for. You know,
Right.
and yet here we see the other side, which they're the spiritual children of the devil, cheering on and rejoicing for what happened. And it's just, well, time is growing short. And again, to remind you, I'm actually in channel, so I'm streaming right now. You know that, right? I reminded you
Mm-hmm.
last night. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I figured. Yeah.
Okay. I actually just got out of a discussion with a Gnostic, and he let it was
I
a
was
polite discussion, but um, I poked so many holes in his theories, he ended up leaving. So
That's funny.
I was actually about getting ready to disconnect, but now that you're here, I'm more than happy to stay. Actually,
Well,
today's
brother, if you
today.
need to go to bed, then please do. By all
Oh,
means. It's like 1 in the morning.
that's all right. Today is actually my birthday. I'm officially
Yes, I forgot. Happy birthday.
yeah, I'm officially a half a century old.
Wow, you made it. Very happy for you.
Well, thank you,
Congratulations.
thank you. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but
You
Uh,
have stories to tell,
uh,
and you've seen more stuff than like a bunch of people in here have.
uh,
And you have a lot of experiences to speak for and things to pass on
no, thank you.
and still learn.
And still learning, and life is learning. And I think you have a lot of experiences too. Just from the discussion we had last night, you have a lot
Not
to
as
pass on.
many. But
Um,
yeah, what did you do? What did you do today? That was fun.
I didn't have a lot of fun today. Um,
That's fair. Yeah.
what I actually did is I live streamed at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, talking about the Charlie Kirk incident. But then what I did is I went into the nature of man, how we're inherently sinners, and went through the whole event, and basically I turned it into a gospel preaching message. So,
Period.
yeah, so right now that's on my YouTube live stream. It takes YouTube like up to 24 hours to process it, but you could listen to it. But it really got me
Mm-hmm.
into a preaching mode. But my goal was, I really didn't know what to talk about because I was angry and I was sad, and I just still numb about the incident.
Right.
I'm still kind of numb about it. I still can't believe that it happened. But I figured, well, this is a hot topic right now, and maybe this will touch someone. I can talk about the natural depravity of the the natural human, and why we need Jesus, and pointed them to him and gave the gospel. So that's I guess if I had fun today, that was it. And it wasn't fun. It was actually it was painful to go through, because it's never
Right.
fun talking about that stuff, but it's the truth. And um the truth has to be known. It's part of our duty as Christians to say the truth, but we have to say it. you know um we the Bible says in uh Matthew, chapter 10, verse 16, to be as wise as serpents, but be harmless as doves. So I'm always trying to be careful whenever I'm talking, especially sharing the gospel, that I don't come
Mm-hmm.
across as offensive or like I'm attacking someone. But I also
Right.
got to have the wisdom to be able to know when to stop, or what to say, that type of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but so I don't know. I'm praying that maybe, hopefully, the Lord touched one soul with something that I said. I don't know. I know the Lord was bringing scripture to my mind left and right. It wasn't anything pre-planned. I just went live, and
Mm-hmm.
so who knows? I just my heart really breaks for Charlie's family, and I'm still shocked at what happened. I live just right above Utah. I mentioned I'm in
Mm-hmm.
Idaho. I don't mind about everyone knows where I live anyway. So
Right.
I'm about a 3.5 hour drive from Salt Lake City, just north of Salt Lake City, Utah. And
Mm-hmm.
so this kind of hit home to me distant wise. Um, Even though I've never actually been to that campus and I never met him, but it was just like, wow, you know,
Yeah.
it's just hard to believe. I mean, this is stuff that you hear about happening in, third world countries like Mexico, or
Exactly. Like taking out your opponents. That's what I said. I was like, no one should become a politician, and this is exactly why, because we're just turning into Brazil, where the motto is if they're dead, they can't run against me.
exactly.
Or like if they're dead, like I'm a winner against dead men. It's like it's so terrible.
It is. It
How
is.
depraved, bro.
It is. And like you said, depraved is the right word. And I mean, ultimately, all I keep coming back is it shows the depravity of the human heart without God.
Yeah.
We're all capable, without God, we're all capable of that. I think I shared with you yesterday that, when I was living on the streets and in the occult, I was more than willing to kill a Christian. You
Mm.
know, um, thank God I never did. Praise God. Um, God protected me for some reason. I could be spending my life in prison right now. But there really is that depravity, and I really believe it's demonic. I believe there's going through the Bible, it talks about be the head of every country, except for one, Israel. There is basically a high-ranking demon that's in control of everything. Overall, God is still in control of everything, but He allows things to happen, and we get that from the Book of Daniel in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
So even in America, that's going on. But God intervenes. I'm not saying that God just sits back and lets everything happen, but it's just wow, the world is so depraved, and how much more obvious can it be than what we saw tonight? I mean, every debate I've ever seen with Charlie Kirk with a student or a professor, no matter how hostile they were towards him, he was never hostile in return.
Right.
He was always trying to peacefully, argue, and even when they would go on arguing with him for minutes on end and repeating the same point over and over again, eventually he'd have to end their conversation so someone else could speak. But he never returned that hostility, and so I could see
Mm.
the difference in there. And so Charlie Kirk is a loss to us as the nation, but it's more the family that I'm really hurting for, and I hope someone officially, someone that's related to the family, sets up a GoFundMe or a Give Send Go to support
Yeah.
that family, for the funeral costs, and then also to take care of his family. Um,
Yeah.
I just
I hope. I was literally wondering. I'm like, what? This is horrible to think, but I'm like, what's his net worth? Because that's what he's leaving behind for the kids and his wife, right?
right,
So I hope that they obviously that he has a ton of supporters and just so many friends in the I don't know what community that's called, like the political community technically. So they have people obviously as support, but
right.
eventually I don't know what's gonna it. I play out these things in my head. I'm just like, what's gonna happen? She if she doesn't remarry, then like it's their thing to figure out, but it's unnerving to think about.
It is, but we got to remember the whole family. Charlie and his wife. I can't speak for his kids. They're not of age yet. If they were to die now, they would go to heaven because they're not of age to be accountable for their sins. But I know he and his wife are both Christians, and I take comfort in the fact that knowing that God is in control, and as we talked about yesterday, God gives a peace that goes beyond all understanding. Yes, there's going to be grieving and all of that, but I take comfort in knowing that God, they're both the children of God, the adopted children of God, and He's in control. And so that's where I'm at.
I'm trying to get to that, but I'm just more concerned about because even in Nepal, in France, there's so many. I didn't realize how much stuff had happened in this week. It was ridiculous. I was talking to someone a couple hours ago. She's from Nepal, and I don't know if you know what the heck happened. It's just they
No,
burned their parliament.
really, no. I haven't heard anything about Nepal. Could you let
Dude, it's
so what
ridiculous.
happened?
Okay, so um it's mostly my generation. So Z's, they found out that their politicians' kids were, as Nepal is like suffering economically, they're in Harvard and getting like lavish lives. And the kids found out that they're using their tax money for that, like literally using tax money to buy Gucci bags.
Mm,
And they obviously were not happy about that. The government responded by turning off 26 apps, like banning them completely, like including YouTube and messengers and whatnot. Not TikTok for some reason. That did not last long because protests immediately started up. The
Oh.
the protest was one of the biggest in history, but it was peaceful. But they started using tear gas and then
Wasn't this
water cannons. Mm,
China?
No, it wasn't. It was Nepal.
Because I know something like this just recently happened in China too.
Oh my gosh, it's just getting worse, dude. But
Yeah.
they killed a bunch of university students, and bottom line, the parliament is burned. Literally, they burned it, and they also burned a prison down. So 400 prisoners are on the streets. There's a curfew from I think 12 p.m. to 10 in the morning, and if you're out in the streets, you're getting shot.
Wow.
And they're what's the other thing? Um, yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like the college kids, she was a college kid who I was speaking to. She hasn't been to her school for like 7 days, and her school is burned down. So
Wow.
like
Wow.
they're
Wow.
living in like the Hunger Games. It's
Wow.
terrible.
Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah, over in China, there's a lot of protests going against the communist government, and
Of course.
normally they don't do that because the Chinese government cracks down really hard on it. But a lot of students, people of your generation, are out there protesting,
Yep.
and they use water cannons and beat people up and arrested them. I don't know if they killed anyone, but that's something very dangerous to do. So that's actually happened. Well, I guess yesterday. I'm still thinking since I've been up all night. It's still
Yeah,
yeah.
same.
But that happened, and then I work closely with Christians in Pakistan,
Hmm.
and a lot of them are being really persecuted. There's a guy over there who had a disagreement with a merchant, and a merchant falsely accused him of blaspheming the name
Oh
of
wow.
Muhammad, and he's on death row. All it
Are you
takes is
serious?
all it takes is an accusation. The it's Pakistan is one of the worst places for Christians to be. I'm not saying compare other places like China and Nepal and stuff are really bad places, but Pakistan is a really hard place to be. And I work with a Christian ministry over there that they have what's called brickyards, and what happens is the Muslim majority gets these Christians in debt through nefarious means and large debts. And so what they do is they're forced, entire families are forced to work in these brickyards, which are just imagine a piece of land that's all mud, and you get children as young as 5 years old all the way up to the elderly just making bricks all day trying to pay off this debt, and they're getting paid pennies on the dollar to do it. So they're
Oh my
basically
goodness.
slaves their entire lives. And but the upside of that is whenever a Christian community comes under persecution, that's when Christianity grows. If we think about
Mm.
the early history of Christianity, they were heavily persecuted. All the apostles, except for John, were martyred. Christians were sent into the arena, to be killed by either gladiators or wild animals. When Nero burned down Rome, he blamed it on the Christians, and Christians were literally used as living torches to light the streets of Rome at night.
Oh
And
wow.
in spite of all of that, Christianity thrived. And I think the reason behind that is because when we're in such dire straits, that's when our need for God is the greatest, and that's when our faith grows the strongest. And um, once we know something to be true to the core, we can't deny that. It's impossible to deny the truth, and that's it's sad that things like that happen, but at the same time, God uses it to grow His kingdom, and
Right.
so even Satan trying to stomp out Christianity, all he does is he just grows it, So
Mm.
I kind of laugh at the irony of that. But yeah, it's a lot of horrible stuff going on in the world. I didn't hear about the Nepal thing until just now.
Well, I didn't either until she told me because, like, obviously CNN reported on it, but it's so drowned out. Oh, and that's the other thing. The head, like all the politicians, so essentially their equivalent of the president and the finance executive or whatever, like 5 major politicians have ran away. They literally quit on the spot and then ran, and no one knows where they are,
Oh
and
wow,
they're electing their new politician on Discord, and
on,
they
on
have
Discord. Oh
yes, on
wow,
Discord. They literally have apparently a Discord, and the politician had, like, a stage, and 15,000 people listened in
wow.
on the freaking server. It's ridiculous.
That's I don't even know what to say about that.
I don't even yeah, I don't know how their country is working.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they're dying right now, but whatever, they're fine. And then of course China, like I'm not surprised, dude. That place is a literally a godless country.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Christian churches that are allowed, sanctioned by the Chinese government,
Mhm.
they're forcing they're telling them what to preach, and they're rewriting the Bible and everything like that. And
That's ridiculous.
they're you know, many Christians are disappearing, but they're also going against other. I can't remember the name of the group, but there's some sort of Chinese religious group that they're going after. But they're just really breaking down. I mean, it's communism. If we look back on the 20th century, um, more deaths were committed by more murders and crimes were committed by atheists um, than all of the wars previous combined. I mean, we've
Mm.
got the purges by Stalin. I'm not sure how familiar you are with history
No,
from,
yeah.
but then also when China became a communist country, all the purges there. We had Vietnam, we have Cambodia, which is still an issue today. Um,
Mm.
everything that happened. Pol Pot, I'm not sure if you've heard of him. All of these are, you know, basically either atheistic or very they come from a very demonic faith. But obviously, China and you know anything to do with communism is based on atheism, and
Mhm.
just so much suffering, so much suffering.
It's
And
horrible. I like literally I have a theory just from pattern recognition that you know how there's a stereotype of like the oh man, like the education system, like if the academics, that's what they value, right? Um, I have a major theory that the reason that they dive into academics, pride, like work ethic is because they literally have nothing else to live for. Like they don't have religion, they don't have a god, they have nothing to give themselves worth or innate value. So that's why even in Japan, same thing. Like people kill themselves based off of honor. So
yeah,
it's so like there's a direct correlation. Without God, this is what happens. We just like scramble and then the death toll just rises because we don't know what to do with ourselves.
yeah. I have a question for you. Have you ever heard of Saul Alinsky? He wrote a book
No.
called Rules for Radicals.
Mm-mm.
Um, so the book was published in 1972, shortly before he died. He was a hardcore atheist. I don't want to know if you want to say leftist or whatever, but you know, obviously, not a good guy.
Mhm.
And basically, what his whole theory, and I have a copy of the book because not because I believe in it, but for me, I'd rather be informed on something rather than speaking out of ignorance. And
Mhm.
he goes through step by step, and it's about how to change a society from within. And basically, how you do that is by indoctrinating the children.
Mm.
So you get a bunch of oh, this goes all the way back to the 50s when that's when God was officially kicked out of the classroom. And you get a
Hmm.
bunch of people in there who aren't God believers and who are atheists or what have you. And they start teaching one generation to the next, to the next, to the next, until you end up with basically what we have today. And because really the children of one generation end up being the leaders, when they grow up. And so that's how to slowly change a nation. And
Mm.
so I think kind of that's partially what's happening to our country right now.
Yeah,
Um, so and this
I
isn't
agree.
it's not a conspiracy theory. It's literally in black and white in the writing there. Matter of fact,
Oh yeah.
Hillary Clinton did her doctorate paper on that book on Saul Alinsky. And
Mm.
so, I mean, I'm not saying that all teachers and all professors are bad. I'm not saying that at all. I don't want to throw out that accusation. But
Mm-hmm.
a good majority of them, I don't know if you've gone to college or if you're a graduate or not. I don't want you to.
Yeah, I graduated.
Okay. But okay, so your experiences, I'm sure you've run into a lot of them that are anti-God or excuse me, atheist at the most, right?
Countless. I had, oh man, it was so frustrating. They were so prideful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah.
Yeah. I went back to I have 2 degrees. My first degree was information technology and computers,
Hmm.
and then that got oversaturated. So
Yeah.
in 2010, I went back to school to major in English,
Oh,
and
cool.
yeah, I got a degree in English creative writing, and I've got some stuff published. But
Yay.
I'm no great author or anything like that. But the point that I'm making is Idaho is supposed to be a conservative red state. And I went to Idaho State University. And of course, when you go to college, there are classes that you have to take. They call them electives. You can take either philosophy or sociology, all that kind of stuff. And one of
Mhm.
the classes I took was political science. And, I've been around for a while. I don't consider myself a Republican. I consider myself a conservative. I'm a Christian conservative, fiscally and family wise. I'm pro life and all that kind of stuff. And the professor was completely opposite. It was like she was the daughter of Zelensky. And so I just skipped every class. The only time I went to class was to take the test. I aced every single
Mm.
test, but I still get a B minus because she docked me for non-attendance. But I couldn't
Mm.
stand being there because I was so infuriated with all the lies and everything that she was saying that it was just like I have to remove myself from this situation or I'm going to say something that's going to get me in trouble, you know.
Mm. Yeah.
And it's just but that's what we're seeing. But there are good professors, there are good teachers out there. They're trying to make a real difference. The problem is they're in the minority and they're fighting kind of like an uphill battle, and that's the
Oh,
problem.
dude. But they're coddled. That's the problem. Like, I had my film teacher, same scenario. I had no choice. It was a gen ed. I had to take this film class. And one, like, she had crazy pronouns. And I'm not saying like that's indicative of personality, but for her it was because her entire course was like oh man, I forget the actual title, but it was essentially like queer media. And I thought it was
Really?
interesting
Hmm.
because yeah, literally, it was just queer media or the queers in media. And so I learned a lot about what's it called? Like sexual tropes, like even for just men and women. So like women in movies were only portrayed as either like a femme fatale, someone innocent, or like a mom figure. And so there's a bunch of stuff like that, right? It wasn't all like queer themed,
Right.
but we had a final paper and I had a bunch of ideas. I was like, I want to do this, I want to compare these two films. And literally every single one, she shot me down until I got to this like crazy Frankenstein idea. That was like my magnum opus. I wrote like 30 pages and the limit was 20. And, but the thing is that it was a defense of, or like more of a critique of how queers are portrayed in media.
Mm.
And that's the only thing that she would accept. Because I had to tailor to her and her beliefs. And then even then, she gave me a C minus.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh,
Yeah. You got to play the game. It's kind of
yeah,
it's kind of
it was tough.
it's kind of interesting. Your generation. My daughter lived with me for the last 2 years.
Mhm.
She's living on her own now, but she started using all these gender pronouns and stuff like that. And quite literally, it's like she's talking to me to a different language because it wasn't like this
Yeah.
10 years ago. And I'm like, what did you
Right.
say? What's this? Who's this? What? Huh? you know,
Mhm.
and I don't. There's a lot that I don't understand. It's gone past me now. I guess I'm
Well,
considered.
dude.
I guess I'm
Mm.
considered a boomer, even though the boomer was officially the generation right after World War II. Um,
No, yeah, you're an X
I'm an X.
completely.
But but
Yeah,
but I get called a boomer because of my age.
that's
It's okay.
crazy.
It's just like water off a duck's back. It doesn't bother me. But
Mm.
it's all these different things. And don't get me wrong. I have a love for everyone. Whether
Mhm.
if they're queer, gay, lesbian, whatever. But it doesn't mean that I have to agree with their lifestyle. I mean, the Bible speaks out directly against it. But if I'm ever going to talk to someone about it, I'm always going to do it in love. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
attack them, like, okay, you're going to hell because of all this. And
No, yeah, literally.
I don't talk to people like that. And they're the biggest thing that's really bothering me is this transitioning going into trans. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a little personal here with you on this. And
Mm.
I'm live streaming, so I'm getting personal with everyone.
Mm.
Um, I'm not gonna name a name, but I have two daughters, and my youngest daughter, she got in connection with a Reddit group, and then through Reddit, involved with a group with somehow on TikTok, who convinced her that basically she was trans. And she went through, and as soon as she reached 18, she started getting all the testosterone injections.
Mm.
And now, I mean, she was a beautiful girl. I mean, as far as heart wise, but also physically. And I'm not saying that as a sexual pervert. There were guys
Mhm.
that were constantly hitting on her and stuff like that because she was really pretty.
Right.
But unfortunately, all the testosterone really messed with her chemistry. She grows a beard just like I do now. Her voice is as deep as possible. I
Mm.
thank God she's starting to back away from that. She actually got into witchcraft um,
Oh,
from this, so it led her all the way into witchcraft. And
yep.
she even started openly praising and worshiping Satan. She's backed away
Mm.
from that because I've been praying for her hard time, and so is my church and everything like that. I really believe in the power of prayer. Um,
Right.
but there are people who have gone through those surgeries. I call them mutilations, where they have
The
their bodies
sectaries and
changed,
whatnot.
and then they detransition, and they
Yeah,
regret everything they've gone through. But
it's rough.
it's really rough, and my heart goes out to these people. You've done something permanent to your body that you can never change. My youngest daughter will never ever be able to have children
Mm.
because of the injections. And a lot of people that come out of this lifestyle, um, there's a lot of regret there, and some of them even get really suicidal, and my heart just
Yep.
breaks for them. And But the issue is she didn't. My daughter, and I think this is for most people who are trans. I'm not trying to generalize, but just going through the research because it's affected me personally. So I've looked into this. I don't
Mhm.
think they start out that way. I think they get involved with groups of people who convince them one way or another that they are, and they start believing it, and they end up being that way. And so,
Yep.
again, I'm not trying to be offensive, and I'm not preaching hate against these people at all. My heart actually
No, you're
goes out
literally
to them.
fine. I can testify to that. You're completely correct because I actually was gay for a bit,
Mm,
actually for a long time, and then, but I can testify. I literally the majority of it was for a social connection, and then
yeah,
also like I had fear of men, but it was majority. My friends were all also LGBT as kids, and so me as the weird kid, I was like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. It was a combination of things. I can go deeper, but you're completely correct.
yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of it's trauma based too. And I'm not
Yep.
talking about you, but both my daughters were sexually assaulted. And that really messed them up for a while. Um, Unfortunately, I got divorced right when my kids were really, really young. Um, we we were living in Washington. We just moved out to Idaho, and I had married a woman who was 9 years older than me, and I had just become a Christian. And I lost my virginity to her. So the reason I married her was because I wanted to do the right thing. I was a stupid 19-year-old kid, but I didn't want to be one of those guys who, starts racking up a body count. So I wanted to do the right thing with her. So our
Hmm.
whole relationship wasn't based on anything solid. And when she was up here in Idaho, we just had our my youngest child. She just turned a year old, and her family's in California. And she said, "Hey, can I go? You're busy in school. I was furthering my education in computer technology. I was literally doing 19 credit hours, and most of it was lab time. And the reason I was able to do that is because she was working for the college, so I was paying $5 for a credit. I mean, the books cost more than the schooling. Um, but she never got along well with my mom, and so she says, can you write me a piece of paper giving me permission to take the kids to California because I'm afraid that if I take them, your mom's going to call the cops on me and accuse me of kidnapping them. And
Oh wow.
I'm really busy, at school. To be honest with you, I spent the majority, at least 60 hours a week, if not more, at school because I was doing lab. I was doing a combination of geology and computer science because I wanted to get a job working in Hawaii. um, so I was like, yeah, that's totally fine. I want your family to meet their our youngest child, and I know you haven't seen him in a while, and that's totally fine. So I gave my permission, and she was only supposed to be gone for a couple weeks. That week turned into a month, and then I started to realize what was going on, and I ended up dropping out of college. I got really depressed, and I went and see a doctor, and he put me on some antidepressants.
Hmm.
And when she got her 6 months residency there, she officially filed for divorce. And
Oh
that
wow.
that hit me like a brick. So what did I do? I had this whole bottle full of antidepressant medication, and I downed it. And I knew as soon as I did that, I was like, no, I don't want to die. This is the wrong thing to do. I don't want to do this. I called my pastor. I called 911. They, of course, obviously, they put me in a psych ward for 3 days for observation. They always do that type of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but she used that against me in court and took away all my rights to my children. And
Oh wow.
so, um, the only right I had was to pay child support. I wasn't, of course, I wasn't about to give up my rights to my children. Um, Even if I couldn't see them or anything like that, they're still my children. But basically, they grew up without a father in the house, and they went into some really rough times. They were in Southern Cal, and so they were both abused sexually, and they went through a really just really a lot of hard stuff that I wouldn't wish on anyone. And I think, at least speaking for my youngest, I think that might have been kind of the kicking point of getting her into the trans movement because of what she went
Mm.
through. I can't say that that's why everyone goes into it, but I think in her case that's what happened because she was afraid of men, and she started feeling attracted to girls, and then she was confused about her sexuality and all of that, and I think that's what happened. But as a father, I had no say in it. I could say nothing about the medication that she was put on, what counselor that she went to see. I mean, the counselors were actually encouraging her to be trans. Um,
Mm.
all this stuff. I had no say in the matter. So all I could do was pray and sit back and pray. And but slowly she's coming out of it. She hasn't had the surgery, so I mean her body is still intact, but she has changed forever. And I would ask you to. I'm not going to give out her name, but God knows who it is. But I would ask you to keep her in prayer if you would do that
I
for
will,
me.
yeah.
Um, but really, my heart goes out to them. I don't hate anyone. I really don't. Just because I disagree, because the Bible says something, just because I disagree with a person on something doesn't mean I hate them. And I think,
Mhm.
unfortunately, in today's society, people look at, well, if you disagree with me, then you hate me or you're wrong, or that type of thing. And no, it's not that. Um, I've had friends who were gay and stuff like that. And I never treated them any different um, than someone else. They're a human being just like us. We're all created in the image of God. So it bothers me. I know I'm talking for. I should shut up. I'm sorry. It's late, so I
No,
just
you're
keep on
so
talking.
fine. You're okay. No, you're completely fine. Cause I completely empathize. Like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it sucks, and it's hard to say. Like, oh, I don't want to.
Don't
What's
say
it
anything
called?
that you don't want to. Don't. I'm not
No,
actually.
no, no, no. I know. I was saying like it's hard um to not generalize, but literally, you're so correct because even this lady I was talking to, her son is also trans and was getting into tarot. It's
Mhm.
just a cyclical cycle.
It
Like
is.
it just goes that route so fast.
It.
Um,
I'm amazed at
mm,
how she ended. She started with tarot. My daughter started with tarot too. Then she got into witchcraft, and then she literally got into Satanism. And it was just
yep.
like, how did it lead that way? And to me, I just see the devil behind it, behind all of that, and I see it all as demonic.
Yeah.
And I can't come up with any other explanation of how that would occur.
Yeah, it's just in there cuz I remember when okay, so when I was on the internet as a kid, it was 2015, 16-ish. And so there was I can literally see the change in the LGBT community cuz before it was secret and it was like almost whimsical and it was very alluring.
Mm,
Even the songs, like there were several songs I listened to that were so like upbeat and preaching just go for it even though if your parents won't accept you. I remember even watching tutorials on how to come out to your parents, which
mm,
I never did. But I still had relationships, right?
right.
So it was just but it was so alluring, and even in that I can 100% I think I do remember the vaguely spiritual ideas in that because spirituality just leads to witchcraft. Like, I'm sorry, there is
It
no
does.
in between. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a slippery slope. And so the feeling that I would get from lesbians, at least then, not just I'm bringing up just specifically them just because that was who I was interested in,
Mm-hmm.
is the same vibe I would get from the witches that I've surrounded myself with later on.
Right. Right.
It's just the same um it's not the community, it's just the same aura.
It is, and
And
it's yeah. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, you're good. That was it.
Um, I think it happens subtly too. It's not in your face. I mean, even when I got involved in the occult, it wasn't like, okay, I know immediately I'm going into witchcraft or druidism or all that kind of stuff. It was gradual and gradual until all of a sudden I'm in this situation that I never thought I'd be in before. And it's very subtle that way. And I think a lot of sin is that way, no matter what it is. Um, even sexual sin as a whole, even if you're, heterosexual, um, there's, I don't want to get too graphic. This is a Christian channel, but there are swingers out there and stuff like that. And I don't think someone wakes up one day and say, "Hey, I'm going to go ahead and cheat on my wife or let my wife sleep with other men and be all
Mm-hmm.
for it." I don't think people just wake up with that idea. I think it's
No.
I think it's just everything. All that sin comes in gradually and subtly, and I think that's how the devil works. I've gone through the experience multiple times. I mean, even as a Christian, I found myself doing stuff that I didn't realize I was actually doing until all of a sudden, I've got so many bumps over my head because God has had hit me over the head with the 2x4 so many times to wake me up. Um,
Mm.
I was just like realize, whoa, how did I end up here? And then I can trace it back to like, oh, okay, okay, which is why we've always got to be really careful with what we do because
Mm.
it's very subtle and
It
very
is.
very devious. And the hardest part for me, you were talking about, how are you going to come out to your parents? My daughter, my youngest one, it's coming up on 4 years now. She messaged me on Facebook because, again, she was underage and, I couldn't see her or anything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
she came out and told me that she was trans and she wanted my blessing on that.
Mm.
And of course, I'm a Christian. I can't give my blessing. But what I told her was this: I says, and I told her, called her by her name, says, "Look, I love you very much. I'm always going to be here for you. I'm never going to judge you, but I can't give you my blessing on this because it's against what God says." And she ended up cussing me out
Mm.
and blocked me, and I haven't spoken to her since by her choice. I still try to send her Christmas cards and birthday cards and stuff like that, but because I wouldn't give my blessing on it, and it wasn't out of hatred. I The way I live my life is God comes before everything. He's number one in my life. He comes before me. If I ever get married again at this age, 50, I doubt that'll ever happen. But he'll become before my wife. God has to be first in my life. He has to be, and he's my Lord and Savior. He saved me, and
Mm.
so I had to put him first. But I tried to come across as lovingly as possibly as I could, explaining her, I love you, and I'm always gonna be here for you. I mean, and even right now, if she showed up at my door knocking on the door, I would let her in and give her a big old hug and love her. I hold nothing against her, but she was so filled with hatred against me because I wouldn't give that blessing. And she, I had to choose between God and my own daughter over this whole thing. But it wasn't done
Mm.
out of hatred. And I tried to get that across to her. And she kept using, well, I'm going to commit suicide. That was her weapon and stuff like that if you don't
Oh,
accept it.
dang.
She'd always use suicide as a weapon to get her own way. And it's like, well, I can't control what you do, and you're responsible for your own actions, and it'll really hurt me. But I hope you don't. But just know that I love you, and I'm always going to be here for you. But I just can't give you my blessing on this because God's cursed it. So,
Mm.
it's a difficult line to walk as a parent. And, at the same time, I do, even though, I've never been gay, I've never been trans, I understand the struggle of sin and in general, and um, wanting someone to accept your lifestyle and feeling the rejection when someone doesn't get the blessing for your lifestyle. I understand where she comes from, and my heart hurts for her. And so it's very difficult. It really is. And I don't know. My heart just goes out to everyone. I mean, you went through that experience. My heart goes out to you for that. My heart goes out to those who are currently involved in that right now. And I really do believe in the power of prayer. I really do. I keep a logbook, and this is something you might want to do. Um,
Mm.
Prayer requests that you've asked God about, and then when God answers them, write down the date and how He answered it. And that's something that I do. Is it's a diary that I go back to and I read from time to time, and I can literally see God working and answering those
Mm.
prayers. So that's a faith builder, and to know that at least that she's left Satanism, she's gone out of the occult. She's still taking the testosterone, but she's not going to do the surgeries. To me, that's a lot better than where she was a couple years ago. So,
Mm.
I'm still praying that God will continue to work in her life.
I hope so too. It's tough. It's like, because I'm trying to remember all the trans kids that I was friends with either just had trauma or sexual trauma or um what I will say though is that there's a correlation between what's it called? Between like essentially being autistic and being like LGBT. I will say that.
Okay.
But I don't like because you can argue that socially, those that are on the spectrum, because me and my brother are autistic, so I can speak to this.
Okay.
We have a hard time, like I guess, understanding where we fit in society.
Mm,
Like I'm a girl, right? And I've always had trouble presenting as such because it's just tough for me to understand social norms, period. But obviously, I'm older, so I understand just from pattern recognition and, being around my peers for so long, right? But when you're younger, I can completely understand why, quote, gender is a spectrum for those on the spectrum because
right.
it's it's already hard enough to kind of fit in with your quote role you're supposed to play in society.
Right.
But then when you have like a more creative expression of it, then you're more eager to go towards that. So there's that side, but the majority of it, of the other reasons why someone ends up there is just what you said. It's mostly trauma
Yeah.
or not coercion, but like uh a very romanticized peer pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's like that. And I'm not autistic, so I can't say that I can relate to you completely. What you're
Mhm.
talking about. I have known other people who have autism, and some very autistic people that are who have it. You seem very. I believe that you have autism, but you're a lot easier to communicate with than other people that I've spoken with. They have it really bad, and my heart goes out to them. Um,
Yeah.
but let's bring it back to Jesus. The gospel
Yeah.
itself is actually very easy to understand. Even a
Mhm.
child can understand it. So even if you do have autism or something like that, you can't understand the gospel enough because it is very, very, very simple. And then when you have Christ come in, then he starts changing the heart. And that's where I always go back to that you need to be born again because it's in the Bible and it's God that it's all about Jesus. It's all about God. He's the one that does the changing, not us. And so that's why I always rely upon him because even, me, I'll confess, every time I've tried to rely upon myself to do something, I've always screwed it up. I
Yep.
have. I've always messed it up. Um, but when I rely upon God, even if I don't understand, like this whole Charlie Kirk thing, I don't understand why God allowed that to happen today. I'm still trusting in God because I know that even out of something evil and horrible, he always finds a way to bring good out of it. And um and just the fact that we are broken creatures, we're born with the sin nature, and sin is literally it's rebellion. We want to be gods of our own lives, and we want to be in control and all that kind of stuff, and pride is a huge thing of that. And we've got to be willing to humble ourselves, I guess, really is what it comes down to.
Yup.
So I don't know. It's
We try.
it's
Brother, I would love to I'm sorry, I would love to continue this conversation, but I have a very, very bad migraine. So I'm gonna call it.
that's fine.
But I hope that you feel better a little bit because I know I was also really not well before I came on here because of Kirk and just everything that happened today. I'm sorry that happened on your birthday. I wish that it would have this happened another day, but that's just how it goes, right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
I do feel better. It speaking with a sister in Christ, speaking with you, has uplifted my spirits. So thank you for coming in tonight. And I'm tired as well. So I hope you get over your migraine, and I hope you have a really blessed day. I want to say
you too.
tomorrow, but today, whatever it is, when you wake
It's
up.
you too. Yeah, I hope that maybe the better part of today is your sleep.
Yeah.
Because dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
All right.
chat, brother. I'll see you when I see you.
Sounds great, sister. You have a great night, and I pray that migraine goes away fast.
You too. Good night.
Good night. All right, folks. So I guess that's going to be the end of the stream for me tonight. It is about 3:30 my time, and if you haven't listened to the stream that I did last night, this is when I first met this lady, and we had a really it was a 3.5 hour long stream, and it took I think about maybe almost 40 minutes to an hour before she came into the room, but we just had a really great conversation. If you haven't listened to it yet, um, it's called Going Fishing. Yesterday's date. Listen to that. That's why I met her. She's a really blessed sister in Christ. She's actually a new Christian, and she came out of the occult just like me. We have a lot in common, and um, there's a real brother and sister love between us because of the commonalities that we have. So I think it was a blessing that God brought her in today. I do feel better talking with her about the Charlie Kirk situation, and she feels better, so that's a good thing. So I'll give glory to God for that. So anyway, for those of you who've listened and who may listen in the future, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of those of you who have subscribed to my channel and have left comments. And again, let's keep the family of Charlie Kirk in prayer and all his associates and friends. Charlie's in a good place right now. He's taken care of. Let's pray for those that he's left behind. All right, this is Phil signing out. Until next time.